Thanks, Amy. All right. How are we doing this morning? How's my volume? Everybody hear me?
You sound great.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, so here we go. Welcome. Thanks for coming. We are going to talk about the functionality of report generation and looking at your results in Qualtrics. So again, this is after you have created a survey and you've launched it and collected information, whether that's an evaluation or a registration or a satisfaction survey or any of those things that we use Qualtrics for. And this is a very sort of neat and tidy way to get your results in a nice little package. And then additionally, to use this function to maybe investigate your data a little bit further. I'm going to guess that maybe 99% of what you would want to do on a regular basis, Qualtrics kind of does for you intuitively. So as many things with Qualtrics, there is a beginner, an intermediate, an advanced, a very advanced level. Today, we're definitely on sort of the beginner side of things. But again, if you need to go beyond this, it's going to be a rare occasion. What I'll cover today is going to cover most of your needs. And there are lots of resources beyond this to help you out. So yeah, we'll try and keep it topical. My examples are going to be obviously like evaluation focused. We'll show some examples of evaluation data that we have. And but it's totally adaptable to anything else that you might be using it for. All right, so in general, here's what we're going to talk about in the next hour or so. So before we get into reporting, we're going to talk briefly about sort of cleaning up your data and make sure that once you head into the reports function, that your data is as good as it could possibly be. And then we'll talk about kind of the four sort of main skills around report generation, and that is creating reports. So how do you start? How do you use visualizations? How do you do cool things like breakouts? We'll talk about editing a little bit. So how do you change the type of graph you're using? How do you change the decimal places? All those kind of things. We'll talk about filtering data, which is super useful. So if you have a giant data set, but you only want to look at a small subset of that, how do you do that? And then finally, how do you share reports? So everything from just exporting a Word document to setting up an automatic email that goes to people in your stakeholder group or in your office or whatever. So as we always say with Qualtrics, the sort of wealth of information online is pretty massive. It's a widely used resource, and they do a phenomenal job themselves of giving you all the information that you would need. And so their sort of basic overview page on creating reports is extremely robust. So, and this is it. It just gives you a nice overview, and then all these different subjects, you can click on them, and it expands and takes you to different places. So I will kind of cover this stuff today, but if you ever need to go back and look at more information, the Qualtrics webpage is more than ample. So, all right. So on that note, let's go ahead and just dive right into Qualtrics and just start walking around. All right. So I went ahead and I have a lot of surveys, and you might be surprised. I just grabbed a random one, really. This is our sort of food safety ServSafe class that we give to employees who work in restaurants and food service facilities. And this is a bunch of data that we collected a couple years ago. So it's a very simple survey. I thought it might be nice to show some examples from here without sort of overwhelming everybody with more advanced evaluations. So yeah, real quick walkthrough. We asked the county name that they're in. We asked the date that they took the class. We asked how they heard about the program, whether their boss or the health department or whatever. A couple open-ended questions, something that they learned and what they're willing to be vocal about in the workplace. We ask a really generic, like, hey, 1 through 10, what'd you think about today, the overall experience? A couple demographic questions, race, ethnicity, and sex. And then we ask sort of a 4-point sort of scale of agreement about learning things and using the information that they learned. And that's it. So it's a really old survey. It's been this way for about 10 years. It definitely needs a facelift, but it's got some good data in it. All right, so hopefully you all have some familiarity with Qualtrics, but if you don't, over here are kind of the main 5 stops in the upper left-hand corner. So we're in the survey section right now, obviously. You also have workflows, distributions, where you email or create links to share your survey, data analysis, where it kind of shows you your data either in table form or you can export it, and then finally reports, which is where we're going to spend most of our time today. So this project has a couple hundred responses, I think 407. So in the reports tab, it looks like this. If you haven't come down all the way to the right side yet, it's what reports looks like. It's divided into 2 sections. So you have these sub tabs of results and reports. So we're actually going to hang out in reports results mostly today, as opposed to reports. Reports is where you kind of keep track of your reports and can create them from scratch. Reports results is a bit more intuitive, where you can kind of build things. So here's what reports looks like, for example. This is where you can create and like customize the fine details of each report as you're doing them, which is great. But for today, we're just going to talk about kind of the default and kind of the stock type of things that you have available without getting too much into the detail. All right, so let's take a little walk around. First, up here in the corner, we have the report. So you're able to create a bunch of different reports, or just one, or just 2, or whatever you want to do for each survey. So maybe you have a survey or registration, and you create a report that's just for you, that gives you some information. Maybe you can create one for your supervisor, or create one for somebody who's organizing a conference to give to them. So you can have a bunch of different reports for the same set of data, which is great. And here's where you would create them or copy existing ones and change them. Next to my report is the filter function. And we'll get into this in a little bit, but this is where you tell Qualtrics what data to show and what data to omit in order to really kind of fine tune what you want to look at. On the right side here is really just the window for all the questions in your survey. So as you can see, these are all different, all the questions in the survey. And if you want to, you can grab them and you can reorder them to really kind of customize the order that everything is in. Most importantly, you can turn these things off and on, right? So each one of them has its own checkbox. So for example, the very first question in my survey is county name. And this is an open-ended box. And so every single person who put a county in, and there are 412, that's going to show up in your report. You don't necessarily want that to just be pages and pages and pages of responses. So I might come over here and unclick that. Now that's not going to show up on my report. So this is where you would control things like that. Over here on the right side, you have the share report function. And when you're all done creating something, this is where you tell Qualtrics where you want it to go. So the simplest way is to just turn it into a PDF or a Word document or some PowerPoint slides or a CSV. I tend to default to a Word document. I like exporting it to Word and then fine tuning it in Word and then sending it off to whoever I need to send it off to. If you want to, you can also export the raw data. And the bottom 2 functions are really great. We'll get into these in a little bit. You can create a public report where you create essentially a website, a web link. You can share it with people in the public to click on it and come see your report. And then you can schedule a report email. Next to the share function is the cog. And this little gear kind of gives you an overview of what's happening. So this survey has 412 responses, and right now it is filtered, which it's showing all of them, right? So my data below has 412 items in it. This edit report function is great. This is where you can come in and do similar stuff to what's on the right side. Again, a lot of things in Qualtrics, functions show up in multiple places to make it easy to kind of navigate. This is where I can turn off and turn on different things. Also over here under the gear, report settings. This is your sort of overall report kind of setting universe. So all of your reports in this survey are going to have this setup right here. So you can come through and change the default settings and customize it on kind of a universal level. So a really good example of that is default decimal places. So I make lots of tables with my data, and the default is 2 decimal places, but I think it's frankly a little bit too specific, and it takes up a lot of space. So I'm going to change that to 1 decimal place. Color palettes, it defaults to this kind of standard word palette. But if you want to, you could make all of your charts and graphs something else. So now all of my charts and all of my graphs are going to have this default color palette in them. If you want to get crazy, you can customize a palette and bring in colors for, I don't know, Ohio State or your county or whatever you want to do. And again, font spacing, default visualizations, and all kinds of stuff. So there are a lot of different things that you can do really quickly to customize it. So we're just going to go back to the default and hang out there. All right. Yeah, so that's the basic walk around. We're going to go ahead and just jump in and start creating a report essentially. Before I do that, I wanted to briefly talk about cleaning up some data. So for that, I'm going to jump from the reports area over to the data and analysis. And so this is where you get kind of a real quick snapshot of your data. You can look at every individual response. As you can see, it's all here in a big table. And then this is the place where you would go and export your data, for example, right? So if you don't know how to do that, maybe you're already doing it, this export import area is where you would export your data to an Excel spreadsheet, for example. So maybe that's what you're doing now instead in lieu of a report. So what we often do in Qualtrics is we create a survey or registration and we send it out into the world. Before we do that, we maybe test it, right? So you might test it on yourself, or you might send it to your colleagues to test to make sure it works okay and it's not broken. So they're going to be putting in their dummy data just to test it. And that dummy data is going to be saved in Qualtrics. So when you do your reports are going to pull that dummy data in and be included with your other actual responses. And we don't want that. So we want to be able to sort of eliminate and delete all of our sort of fake or dummy or non-real responses. And so we would do that here in the data and analysis area before we go and make a report. So for example, as you can see this morning, I threw in a fake response. And I sort of put the word test in there, as I often do when I test things. But you're going to know, if you ask people to do it on a certain day, you're going to know which ones are real and which ones are not true responses. So if I wanted to delete this, the easiest thing to do is go over here to the actions down arrow and hit delete response. And that would take it out of the data set. So as you can see, we're going to look at it first. So I put in test, I put in a fake date, I put in just the word test. So if I were to include this in my data set, I would get, an extra set of numbers that would not be true to my actual data. So we need to get rid of that. All right. This one's easy because I can see it because it's first, right? So I would go in and delete it and be done. But I have 400 some responses in here. Let's say I have a response that I need to delete that is buried somewhere in my 400 responses. I could click through page by page by page by page and look for it, but that was terrible, obviously. So what I would do is I would export the data to an Excel spreadsheet, and I've already done that. And here is what it looks like, right? So here's all my responses from the survey. And I know that in here somewhere is a survey that I need to delete. So a couple ways to search for it, right? One way to search for it would be by the identification number. So every single response in Qualtrics gets a super funky response ID of like 15 digits, right? So here is mine. So let's say I go through the spreadsheet and I find my test data I need to delete. And it's this one right here. And this is the response ID that I need to delete out of Qualtrics. So what I can do is I can copy the response ID, and I'm going to filter all this data. So filters are great. Filters are super intuitive. They are made to read like sentences, right? So I could filter the data on a question. I could filter the data on any of this metadata that's in the background. So I'm going to go to the survey metadata, which is all the stuff that Qualtrics kind of attaches on, like when they took the survey, when they finished the survey, if they finished it, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to look for a response ID. And so if the response ID is this one, then I want it to show up. So I might have already deleted this, which I might have caught myself out here. I was obviously playing with this earlier. There it is. Okay. All right. So I went ahead and I made a filter where basically show me all the responses where the response ID is this. There's only going to be one. And here it is. So I found that in 400 lines of data in a couple seconds, right? Let's say I don't know the response ID, but I know that I entered this data on a certain date, right? Let's say I launch my survey on a Thursday. I'm going to know that everything before Thursday is going to be dummy data that I need to get out of there. So for example, I could sort my data based on the recorded date, right? So I could say everything Wednesday and before, I want that to show up, and then I can delete it all out. And that way I know that everything that's left in my survey is from Thursday onward. So that's a really easy way to do that too. So recorded date, so you can do these built-in ones, or you can also do things like before, between, and after. So if I wanted to find this, I could say, show me everything that's after, October 1st, and this would pop up. All right, so once I find my data through whatever means necessary, I'm going to go ahead and delete it and make sure that I wanted to delete it. And it's working. So it takes a while sometimes to delete this out, which is fine. This is a pretty small survey, so it should be pretty quick. Okay, let's go back to reports results and start putting together a report. So again, here, the idea is that I want to, a report is basically a visual summarization of all of your responses, right? So you want some way to package it up with charts and graphs and tables in order to sort of quickly capture what's happening, right? So things like frequencies, percentages, and sort of basic tables of statistics will kind of get you what you're looking for. All right, so these open-ended ones, as I said, the county name, you're not going to really want that in there because in this situation, I have a text box where I typed in county name. If you have a situation where you have maybe a drop-down menu and you have all the counties listed and they select the county, you could easily turn that into a table of counties and find out how many people from each county came to your program. That would be pretty simple. In this case, it's an open text box, and it doesn't work quite as well that way. All right, so let's start a new report. I'm going to go ahead and just hit this report area and go down to create a new report. And we'll just call it training 2. All right, and so basically it just starts from scratch. So all of everything I've done before that is kind of gone, and now I've got a standard default report. All right, so county name and date, I'm going to go ahead and take out. And then let's go ahead and look at one of the first questions. So how'd you hear about the program? This is a very simple multiple choice question. And Qualtrics tends to default to a couple of of things. So it's going to give you a visualization, which is what these are called. And it's going to give you a graph of some kind, and it's going to give you a table of some kind. So as you can see, this graph and this table are both related to the same question. So you're welcome to keep them both, but you could take one out, you could add another table, you could do whatever you wanted to do. And you do that by clicking on the visualization. So let's go ahead and click on this bar chart. And as soon as I click on it, if you saw that, the entire right side just opened up with options. And these are now all of the options, all of the settings that are tied into this bar chart. If I click on this table down here, then I now have all the options related to this table, right? All right, so back to the bar chart. Again, this is where you can literally just have fun and move things around in a way that you would like. As everything in Qualtrics, you can't really break it. You can change something, you can delete something, and then you can just bring it right back, and it's going to be right there again. So some of the choices you're going to have are what you're expressing, right? So right now I'm expressing the count. So these are the number of people that answered each one of these questions, right? But I could do a percentage, which looks like that, right? So 60%, 62% of people who came to this program heard about it through work or from their boss. Or the default is what? 253. So those are two different ways to express the same kind of data, and it might just depend what you want to show. Again, decimal places, the default's 2, we saw that. I will get to breakouts in a little bit, but if you want to, you can add a title. If you've ever used this kind of function in Excel, for example, it's very much the same thing. You're adding titles, you're adding axes, you're labeling axes, all that stuff. All right, here's where I get to choose the kind of visualization I want. So the bar chart is kind of the default, but if I wanted to, I could throw a pie chart in here, and I would get something like this, right? So here is the legend down here, and here are the percentages that apply to each one. And you can change this. So you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. You can change different thresholds. You know, if you only want to show above a certain percentage. Again, you can change the palette. You can literally turn off and on different ones. So if you don't want to show the others, you could just show those choices. As you can see, I can go back and forth and turn stuff off and on. So super simple, and then this will show up in your report and look pretty awesome. And then you can take this and put it into a PowerPoint presentation, or put it into a PDF document, or however you want to share it. Here's breakdown bar. So again, you get a real nice option here as well. All right, so that's a real quick navigation on how you can play with visualizations. Here's a data table. These are what I kind of tend to default to, right? So it has a choice count and it's got a percentage. So that's pretty nice. You can obviously move, let's knock those down a little bit. Let's just show, let's take percentages out, for example. So you can do whatever you want. All right, and then if you have an other category with a text box, it's going to show up as the other. So here's how people heard about the program that weren't one of the choices. They're through school or through their wife or whatever it is. Now these, if it's a text box, you have obviously different options. You don't have all of the frequencies and all the percentages and stuff. You could just show all of them. In this case, there are about 100. Or you could do something like, let's say, a word cloud, if it makes sense. So in this situation, we made a little word cloud. So Qualtrics has gone through and pulled all of the words that are in this field. And the more often something is mentioned, the bigger it is on the screen, right? So things like school, teacher, counselor, extension, the media, those are things that are coming to the fore. So just a cool visual way to organize your your qualitative data. But if you're going to keep it as a list, one quick note to show you is that it's only giving me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 responses out of 119. So if I were to publish this report, I would only get 5 responses. If I want all of them, I'm going to have to go over here and change this results per page. So bump this up to include, let's say, 100, for example. It's not going to go over that because then we're talking about pages and pages and pages, but this way I can show 100 responses. And again, a lot of them are the same, right? So if this were me, this might be a situation where I export this data into, let's say, Excel, and then begin to kind of group these up by common response, right? So Qualtrics can't quite do that for you because it's an open-ended box, but you can do that fairly straightforward. All right, so what else do we have in here? Again, these open-ended ones, we can share as many as we want to. Here is kind of the give us a rating 1 through 10, very similar to the earlier one. It's giving us a simple bar graph. And these are pretty much the same options that we had earlier, because again, it's sort of quantitative data in a sort of multiple choice question. Because it is a range of 1 through 10, we do have this other little feature here. This little gauge chart can be kind of cool sometimes. So it's basically saying 8.28 is kind of the average score out of 10 that this program has been given. So instead of just having a table, so below it is the table where they have minimum, maximum, and the mean, and other things. You can see the mean is 8.28. So instead of just having a table that says 8.28, maybe you throw this little gauge meter in there to visualize that. And of course, over here, you can kind of mess around with what it looks like. So change the color, change the minimums, change the maximums, change the overall view. All right, and then yeah, demographics are pretty straightforward. Again, defaults to a table. So and some charts. So really basic red bar charts. That's where we kind of start. And then from here, you can kind of do whatever you need to do. So again, is it necessary to have a bar chart and a table? Probably not. So maybe the table goes away, right? So click on the table. And right here, we have a little 3-dot thing that gives us some menu options. So I can export the table by itself, or I can completely remove that visualization. So now that is gone, and I only have a bar chart for the race question. But if I wanted to, I could always bring that back and add another visualization and bring that table back in. All right, the last questions, we obviously have a sex question and these agreement scales. So here's what they look like. They're pretty nice, but it's a lot of information, right? So this is a strange way to organize this, let's say. Sometimes the default, depending on how you create your questions in Qualtrics, the default charts can be a little bit counterintuitive, right? So this is organized by the agreement scale. And then the question is given a color, right? So to me, that seems a little bit backwards. I would want to see it by the question, who disagreed, who agreed, who strongly agreed, but it's organized here by the agreement scale. So if I want to see who learned more, new information, I have to kind of see, all right, so, 210 people said strongly agree. And what, 175 said agree. So I would love to maybe switch this all around, which of course we can do over here on the right side. So to start, we're going to go ahead. So at the very bottom of all this stuff, there's a transpose button. So if we hit that, we have a much, in my opinion, a much nicer chart. So this question now becomes, I learned new information, and then here is strongly agree to strongly disagree, all organized in one question, right? So that is that is great. If I wanted to, I could even take some of these out if I wanted to just highlight a specific question. So I could always go here and click some of these things away to make them go away. Again, everything's very, very customizable, right? So here is this one question. I plan to make a change within 6 months, right? So that is a little bit of self-actualization, a little bit of behavior change that we asked about. And I could, of course, exhibit this in any way I want to. So here it is as a pie chart as it retrieves the data. If it hurries up, there we go. All right, so again, that's a little funky. We might have to go back and change that transverse to get that to look okay. We can also look at a breakdown bar, see what that looks like. Yeah, that's okay, right? That's not bad. Just over half strongly agree. No one strongly disagrees, so that's good. I kind of like that first one a bit more, kind of the original one. All right, and of course down here you have more. You can turn axes off and on. You can turn labels off and on. You can change your legend around, move it around. Just to make it how you want it to be, or maybe if you need to fit on a slide or you need to fit on a postcard, you can move things around to make it work for you. All right, so yeah, that's the general walk around of kind of how to do visualizations. Pretty straightforward. If you have any experience whatsoever with doing stuff in Excel, it should be pretty simple for you. All right, so I want to hit a couple things. Most notably, we need to learn how to filter. We need to learn how to share, and I'm going to do a little bit of breakouts. So while we're here, let's go ahead and look at this breakout function. You also have it over here on the left side. So again, 2 places, right and left. So what breakouts do is they compare data from your survey by some other element in your survey, right? The easiest way to, I guess, look at it is maybe, let's say, okay, so this question, right? So we are looking here at making a change in 6 months, right? And let's say I want to know if there is a difference between the males and the females who came to class. So I want to break out the data by that sex question. And here's where I can do that. So you can break it out by all kinds of stuff, any question that's in your survey, and additionally some other metadata that's in the back end. So let's go ahead and just do this and see what happens. All right, so we now have the same question broken out by male and female. And again, these are numbers, right? So it's a little bit, obviously way more females are in these classes than males. So let's go and take a look at percentages. All right. So this is about making a change. Oh, this is about learning information. Okay, so it went back to the first one. And we can just click through these and you can do whatever you want. Let's go ahead and transpose this. Perfect, that's what I'm looking for. All right. And let's make sure we are on. So as you can see, this is just me exploring, right? I'm just kind of clicking around and kind of getting it fine-tuned to kind of what I want it to be. I want it to show percentages. I want it to be organized by sex. So I want males and I want females. And I want this question about learning new using information. So this is great. So of the females, let's see, 2/3 strongly agreed that they're going to use information. On the male side, 64%. So pretty similar, right? Nothing too different there. But yeah, so as you can see, you can use this kind of stuff to kind of dig into your data a little bit more and maybe find some profound things. In this case, not so profound, but there could be other situations where where it's important to look at this stuff. And I'll show you one of those examples later. All right, let's talk about filters. Filters are going to be something that you might use. I use them all the time because I am doing reports for a lot of people. So I make reports that go upwards, let's say to T or to Pat or to Jackie or whoever, and they want to see data maybe for the entire program or the entire state or for a number of years. I also do reports for educators in specific counties. So let's say an educator in Morrow County taught this class, and they would like the data just for their county, or they would like the data for maybe for only one specific class, or for a 6-month time period, or a quarter of the time period. So of these 400 responses, maybe I need, let's say, 35 of the responses because they fit a county or a time frame or both. And so I'm going to use filters to kind of get just that data together. So back to our little cog over here. There are 411 responses. Remember, we had 412, but I deleted the one that was a test, a dummy data. Now that's gone from the data set. So 411, and there are 411 filtered because there's no filter on. So they're all in this report right now. All right, let's add a filter. So very much like we showed you earlier, you filter basically writing sentences. So for example, I want to filter out, I want to filter on some county names. So let's say the county name is, oh, I said Morrow, let's try Morrow. I think she has some in here. All right, so we have filtered on Morrow County. Let's go back to our gear and see what we have. Okay, 2. All right, there's only 2 surveys in here that say Morrow County. That's not great. Let's get something a bit bigger. Holmes County. All right, there we go. Holmes County. This is taught in Holmes County a lot, obviously. So 1/4 of the data in this data set is just from Holmes County. So then this tells us everything in here has the word Holmes typed into the county name. So that's very specific. I could use the word contains. So now it just contains Holmes, and it's 103 still. So when you have open-ended text boxes and you're trying to filter on them, it can be tricky, right? Because people could misspell things, or they could add a word. So knowing how you're asking questions is very important. In retrospect, making this option a drop-down menu where all the counties are written for them and they just select them, that's a way better way to go for this. But this survey is old and it was kind of done in a different way. So it just has this open-ended portion in it. But either way, I now have Holmes County data. So yeah, so that's it, 103. Let's say I want it for a specific time, right? So I could go to some metadata. And again, just to review, here's all the data, right? And the survey starts here on row R. Everything to the left of that is called metadata. And that is what Qualtrics just stamps onto all your responses. So for example, when they started the survey, if they finished it, all that kind of stuff, right? And so you can filter on any of this metadata. It's totally there for you to work with. This is a funny one because this is a program back in 2019 that does paper-based surveys. And then they come into my office at the end of the year and they all get entered into Qualtrics at the same time. So as you can see, these were all entered for the most part on December 11th of 2019. However, we did enter some back here on 5/13, right? And these are from Holmes County. So if we look down here, we have a lot in Holmes County, right? So all these were from Holmes County and these were all entered at the end of the year. Let's say I get a call from Holmes County and they say, hey, Brian, I really need my data from the 523 class. Could you please give me the data on those people. I had 10 or 12 people. I need that for a report to give to a funder who gave me money for this class. So then we could come back here, and we already have the county of Holmes, right? So I need to add another filter that works on the date. And I'm going to do that with this little plus symbol. And now things get a bit crazy. So you can literally, I think, theoretically add as many filters as you want to. The most I've done is maybe like 4 to get very, very, very specific data. But we're going to just keep this with 2. All right, so back to the metadata. We're going to go with, what was it? It was recorded date, right? So the recorded date, let's go ahead and just try a custom one. We're going to say before, and we know that we can do, again, I go back in time. All right, so May, there we go. So now, cross your fingers, it's going to return data that's only from Holmes County, and that was recorded before 524, which is what I'm looking for, the 523 data, right? Let it do its thing. Let's check. There you go. So it's filtering out 12 responses. Back to our data. Yep, 12 responses, 523 Holmes County. So now I can export this report, give it to the Holmes County educator, who can then pass it on to who needs to see it. And they have all this great data on the project that they funded. So again, you can do a giant report with everything in there. You can, or you can get really, really specific and get really, really targeted data. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Yeah, so again, good stuff. Super simple. You're writing sentences. And again, you can filter this on anything. So you're like, I want to filter it on just the people who the health department sent, right? And so I could go up here, manage my filters. I could just go ahead and just take all these off. And let's see, we're going to how'd you hear about it? Select a choice. Includes work supervisor. And there we go. Let it do its thing. So there are 253 people that said, my boss sent me here. And this report now shows just the data of those whose bosses sent them. And so you can maybe look at that data and see if there's a difference, or see maybe an employer sent everybody here and that employer wants a report of their employees and how they did. And you could do this and you could pull those people out and send it off to them, right? All right. Getting weird residual stuff hanging out now, but we'll just ignore that as long as it works. All right, let's share. Let's go ahead and share some data. So once you're all done, you now need to get it out of Qualtrics, right? And here's where you do that. And again, 4 sort of Microsoft Office options for you and Adobe options, and then fancier ones. So we'll go ahead and just hit Word, and it gives you kind of a summary. So it's going to show you all of these things on your report. And I'm cool with that, right? I don't want date, I don't want county name. Actually, these open-ended ones, those are pretty long too. I'm going to take those off. This is like a really short report just to kind of give a snapshot to my boss about what's happening, right? And then we're going to export this. And as all things in Qualtrics, it creates a report, or it sort of exports the file, and then you click on it and open it up. All right, so here it is. We're going to just download it. And there are more things I could have done to customize it, like mess with the font, take off the question numbers, and those kind of things. But I can also just do that in Word, right? Super simple. All right, here it is. All right, so first of all, the silliest bar chart in the history of bar charts, the 100%. But so again, this thing's in here. It's silly. I'm going to delete it, get it out of here, right? And again, this is just me now. I'm now editing a Word document, right? So I can literally come in and clean this up. Obviously, I can change the, let's see, restaurant. Let's say it's like a restaurant advisory group, right? And they send a bunch of people to this. So there, I'm making a report. I'm going to take this out. It's going to go to this group. I'm going to present it to them at their next meeting. I'm going to print this off and hand it out. It goes ahead and it puts a one question per page, which is a lot. So you can kind of come in and you can add your page breaks, and you can clean stuff up this way. Again, nothing you don't know. Let's say I'm going to add some bullet points, right? Maybe they want to see this data. They want to find out what people learned. So yeah, I guess I did not turn that off. So this is literally all the things that were in Qualtrics, just kind of exported into basic Word tables and Word graphs. And again, you can still work on this stuff, right? Oh man, this doesn't make any sense. Why is this table in here, right? Let's go ahead and just select it and delete it. We don't need that. I like the bar chart. I like this table. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's say, you know what? This is the response number. That's silly. I'm going to go ahead and delete this out. Just have the answer, the percentage, and the count, right? I forgot to change my default. I'm going to go ahead and just do this, right? So again, there's no wrong way to do this. You can't mess it up. If I do something really bad, I'll go back to Qualtrics and I export it again and I start over again, right? That's the the worst thing in the world, is that you just have to kind of try again. All right, to talk about one fancy thing, let's say you have a survey that's just kind of always open and it collects data year round, and you need to present a summary of that data to your team once a month. You could go in here manually once a month and generate the report and then attach it to an email and then send it out to your team. That's fine. Or you can automate that process. So in the share report, down at the bottom is to schedule a report email. And this opens up a just like an email window, basically. And you would go into your contact list. So let's say you've made a contact list. That's like Qualtrics 102 that I think I did a year and a half ago or so, but it's out there. Make a contact list of your team, pop that into here, and then you can tell it when to run this report. So you literally can tell it to run it monthly on the 15th of each month at 7 a.m. And you can say monthly report, make it a PDF document. And you can say, hey team, here's the report for this month. And then you can save that. And every single month on the 15th at 7 a.m., Qualtrics will run this report for you and email it to your team without you doing anything. Let's say you guys have a meeting at 8 a.m., right? Then it shows up in everybody's inbox at 7 a.m. and you can walk into the meeting and you can have the data at your fingertips to look over, right? So again, a little bit advanced, but also not super advanced, as long as you kind of have it all set up. All right, my Qualtrics is in danger of crashing, I think, because I'm doing so much so fast. Oh, there we go. All right. So that, I think, is what I wanted to cover. And I do have 9 minutes. I wanted to do one more thing with this comparing groups, right? My sort of male-female comparison wasn't super interesting. Oh, here, so we obviously run Dining with Diabetes through FCS. We have a lot of surveys that collect information. We evaluate that program extensively, pre-test, post-test, and then follow-ups. So here is the pre-test when people show up to Dining with Diabetes. For example, let's So this is a much more intense survey. There's a lot of stuff in here. But I think one cool thing to look at, we have a lot of couples who come to this program, a lot of older couples who one of the spouses has diabetes, and the spouse is there to support them. So the husband has diabetes and the wife goes with him to the class. And they both fill out the survey. And we ask them, do you have diabetes? Yes or no? The one with it says yes, the one without it says no, and I'm here to support this person or whatever, because I'm the one who cooks. I need to know this stuff so that I can cook better. So yeah, you can sort this stuff through lots of different ways. Where's a good one? Oh yeah, okay, let's do this. All right, let's do a new report so I can start fresh. All right, I want to go to agree or disagree. So we ask them these questions, and we ask them, how much they disagree or agree with these 4 different ones. For example, let's just pick one. Here we go, and transpose it so it makes sense. Okay, here we go. So we ask people, I'm feeling overwhelmed by the demands of living with diabetes or caring for someone with diabetes, right? And here are the responses. So, let's go to percentages. There we go. All right. So when they come into the class, 45% of people say, yes, I'm overwhelmed, but with diabetes, whether having it or having my spouse or son or daughter or parent or whoever with it. 36% disagree, and 18% are unsure, right? So that tells me that, almost half of the people coming into these classes agree that they feel overwhelmed, right? So that's a pretty good number. But let's say we want to look at, let's do a breakout, right? So we could break this out by anything we want to, but I want to break it out by, do you have diabetes, right? So I want to see is there a difference between people who have diabetes or the caregiver who doesn't have diabetes and is there with them, right? So let's see what happens here. All right, great. So now what we have is a whole bunch of these. All right, so I wanted to look at, let's see, this one. Maybe transpose those. Oh, and then it gives me the same color. So again, this is just me sort of playing with them. So why it gave the same color for the same response, I will never know. All right. Okay. Yeah. Look at this. This is cool. All right. So here's the overwhelmed question, right? So for those who walk in the door who have diabetes, 43% say they are overwhelmed. So quite a bit less than half. Those who do not have diabetes, who are caring for somebody with diabetes, 62% are feeling overwhelmed. So that's a pretty significant difference, right? We're talking about a 20% difference. So when that data is all lumped together to everybody who came in the door, we had 45% basically said that they feel overwhelmed, which is interesting. But when I break the data out, I'm seeing, wow, the people who are overwhelmed are those who are, watching someone with diabetes, caring for them, cooking for them. Those are the folks who are more overwhelmed than those with diabetes. So to me, this might be an indication of, maybe in class, we need to have a specially address this issue, and we need to talk to those who are the caregivers in a way that's different than those who have diabetes, right? So, just kind of poking around with some of the data, sometimes you get these cool insights. So the report function is a quick and clear way to get an actual product like an actual PDF document or a PowerPoint to share. But it's also a neat way to investigate, right? And to do simple comparisons and simple math without having to, export everything into Excel and do a bunch of formulas or take it into an advanced software package, for example. All right, so there are 3 minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share. And we're going to see what we can do about any questions that might have come in. Do you see anything, Amy?
So far, Brian, we don't have any questions in the chat. If anyone has a quick question they would like to address in our remaining time, please put it in the chat box.
So like always, these 1-hour Qualtrics trainings, it's just me talking as fast as possible. So hopefully you got something out of it. Remember, it's something. But again, the take home is you can't mess it up. It's always going to be there. You can always just make a new report. You can always go back. You can always add stuff that you might have deleted by accident. So don't worry too much about what you're doing right or wrong. Second take home is that that website, just the Qualtrics report page, is amazing. You can just stay on that first page and just get the basics, or you can follow links and dive into more advanced stuff. So.
All right. Well,
very cool. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We're happy you could be with us for this great Qualtrics reporting session, and we look forward to seeing you at the closing remarks at 1 p.m. with Dr. Jackie Wilkins. See you later.